Welcome, Anne Ortelee, and everyone watching. Here we are,
Yay. On a beautiful
beginning
July day,
about the beginning of the Leo season,
beginning of the Leo season, right before the new moon tomorrow, the new moon in Leo.
and we are bringing up Jupiter in Cancer
Mm.
today with Anne for several reasons. First of all, we are plugging in our amazing conference at Omega Institute, October 3rd to 5th. And the theme is Jupiter in Cancer. So here we are. But the reason I wanted to speak with Anne about this is that she's bored with Jupiter in Cancer,
Mm.
and she's going to have a Jupiter return pretty much
When was
given
that?
give or take a day during our conference. So you're going to have your Jupiter return right as we have a Jupiter
Mhm.
return celebration.
I know it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to it. And whenever you have a Jupiter return, you start a new 12-year chapter. Because he's our great guru. He teaches us, right? And he's exalted in Cancer. And he's in my workhouse. So I always have a lot of work, which is good. And he is, I meant to say I like Jupiter. He's one of my favorite guys out there. So he's a big gassy ball. But he also brings benevolent. A lot of people go, "Oh, you're having a Jupiter thing." I'm like, "Yeah, my Jupiter return, new 12-year cycle starting." So all of us are having Jupiter in the sign of his exaltation, which is a happy place for him. And he's activating the trine, all those five planets that have gone into new signs, shifting into air and fire. He's our water guy, and he's working
Yeah.
with those guys and helping them expand their dreams and their visions and where they want to go and what they want to do. So I am really looking forward to Jupiter in Cancer.
And
And the
that's, it is interesting because, as you mentioned, so many slow moving planets move into masculine sign, air, Aries
air and
and
fire.
Aquarius, air and fire, and Jupiter is the one that keeps the water. However, during our conference and pretty much until November, there are many retrograde planets. So Saturn moves back to Pisces. Neptune will move back to Pisces as well. And
And Uranus moved back into Taurus, but that's a little later in
yeah,
October. Mhm.
in November, actually, I think. But Mars will also be in Scorpio. So we're going to have this loose grand trine in water, even though we are drying up pretty much with fire and air in the coming, this summer and then the coming year. And so, like you say, Jupiter is considered exalted in Cancer, and it's quite often, a favorite planet because of its abundance and opportunities. And yet, Jupiter is expansive, Cancer is cautious, it's more introverted.
Then,
There's still some, it's not such a adventurous sign as Jupiter would be.
right.
How would you kind of see that happening? How do you experience it?
Well, I always have great pets. Remo right over here right now, working. We're helping me do my thing with you. I have wonderful friends. I have always had work I loved. It's in my sixth house, and it rules my direction in life, my path, my 10th house, and it rules my 11th house of groups. So I've always had lots of groups, and I've had lots of fun in my career, in my life. I like to teach. Jupiter rules teaching because he rules the Sagittarius and the Pisces houses, and he co-rules my moon in Pisces in the first house. So he and I are buds. But I also, we think of Jupiter in Cancer because it's got a nurturing energy to it. And, of course, we practice tropical zodiac in this
Hmm.
world, you and I do. And tropical is July and August, or end of June, beginning of July, when Jupiter, everything grows. So,
Hmm.
the corn is as high as an elephant's eye, and it's look like it's climbing right up to the sky. It's very, creative.
Fertile.
It wants to grow things. It wants to expand. And so it's got a lot of benevolence to it when it's in Cancer, because it's like the good Jupiter. And, he can be kind of mean when he wants to be. But this is a good Jupiter. And so we're looking at him and saying, gee, we've got this good Jupiter as we're launching all these new big cycles with Uranus in Gemini for the first time in 84 years, and Saturn and Neptune, Saturn for 30 years, Neptune for 160, Pluto in Aries, Pluto for the first time in 240 in air. So all those air and fire signs are going to be ameliorated with Jupiter saying to them, hey, what's the big good vision you have? What's the community vision? What's the tribal vision? We think of Cancers, we think of our clan and our tribe. And so who's your clan? Who are your peeps? And who are you going to go create this next big cycle with? So Maurice was saying, the planets are all going to go back into water, kind of stir around this magic little concoction of dreams and ideas and focus and structure and vision. And then they're going to go, okay, now let's go do it. And so it's Omega is a magical place, but it's going to be a really interesting weekend, because we're really going to talk about the dreams we have for the rest of our lives, because these planets are starting 38-year cycles, 20-year cycles, 38-year cycles, 19-year cycles in the case of the node. So we're really beginning a fresh chapter with all these planets in fire and air, which are visionary and idea based. So we have to have the idea and the vision, and then we add the emotion of the water, and then we create. So and Omega is a magical place anyway. You're on these rolling hills with amazing food, and just kind of in this space with like-minded community and people that you get to know and love. So it's a really magical,
And
yeah.
in a Jupiter in Cancer fashion, the teachings this time is going to be even more interactive, which is very Cancerian. It's not just linear and taking notes, but we are going to spend time also in small groups. And I think that brings the intimacy of learning of Jupiter in Cancer in a circle, in a smaller group, in intimacy. And there's a lot of transmission that happens more deeply that way. But I need to ask this honest question, because as an astrologer myself, I'm looking at the transit and Jupiter in Cancer, benevolence, all that. What's going on today in the world is very dramatically traumatic. We have wars raging. Jupiter entered Cancer. We didn't see yet, at least that I noticed on a global level, that kind of more compassionate and nurturing aspect outside our personal lives.
Right.
Any take on that?
Yeah, well, I think he's square to Saturn, right?
Yeah.
And he's square to Neptune. And Jupiter and Saturn were having a square this year. They joined back in December of 2020 to start a 20-year cycle. So last August, they had a square. They had a square right after the election. And now they've had their third and final. They were mutable for those times. And now they've squared, and now they're separating. And so Jupiter says to Saturn, look at what you've done. And he's taking off and leaving Saturn behind with his mess, because Saturn is in his detriment in Aries. But Jupiter goes, but I have a different vision for how this should be. I have a vision of, rather than war and hate, which is, whenever a planet enters a sign, we always want to watch what it says we're going to do or what's going to happen. And it announces when it enters a sign, and Saturn's in his detriment in Aries, but he's hanging out with Neptune. So he's able to get away a little bit with the delusion. But now that Jupiter's leaving, he's going to be forming a quincunx to Pluto, which says, how are you handling your power? Are you being a good king or a bad king? And he's forming a semi-sextile to Uranus and Gemini, which is, we have choice. And a lot of people are really aware of what their choices are. Remo's coming up to help here. A lot of people are really aware of what their choices are in the world now, or their lack of choices, or their fear. 'Cause Saturn is fear and Aries is war, and so we see military deployments, we see wars, we see bombings, but we go, is that how we want to live? And so as Jupiter talks to all these planets, because he's asking them all, what that's the cat going by. He's at
That's
whenever
part
I
of the
get in,
Cancer energy.
right, whenever I get into Scorpio stuff, he's got a little moon in Scorpio. He hops on the desk to help. He's my assistant. And yeah, so I think Jupiter in Cancer invites us to think about what we really want. Is this what we want?
So there
And
may be a change
yes,
as
well,
it
and
moves
also
off.
what I think, in talking to people that live overseas, I have a lot of clients overseas. A lot of them are saying, what's going on here in the United States is really making them be more
Nervous.
conscious of their democracies and how
Absolutely.
they want to be. So that, again, we're not, we're just at the beginning phases. We're not at the what we really, what we're saying. And in the United States chart, the Declaration of Independence, it's 0 Aries on the IC.
And it's
So all
also a
the
Jupiter in
and
Cancer.
it's a Jupiter in Cancer, and it's a Sag rising, and it's like, is this the kind of country you want, right? And how are we taking care of our people, and what are we doing? And if you go look at the Declaration of Independence, what they said they wanted from King George is all the stuff they're trying to take away from us now: habeas corpus, right for due process, being
Sure.
treated nicely when you're in jail, all that stuff. It's all like, no, we can do whatever we want. It's like, really? No. But people get a little complacent, a little lazy. It's 250 years. Do we want to, what do we want? Yeah.
And, I also want to kind of bring it that your way of explaining and your way of teaching is very Jupiter in Cancer. So you kind of embody, the way you convey your knowledge is very personable. And it's not detached. It's not, you bring it in a way that's very intimate and safe and accessible, which is very Jupiterian. So we can see you, animating the planets, and
Right.
and I just want to bring that up because it kind of flavors
Yes.
the conversation, as we come together in this event,
Yeah.
and also bringing light in a time of so much turmoil and uncertainty and anxiety,
Hmm.
to kind of that Jupiterian energy of Cancer, of community, reminding us who we truly are and where do we really belong. And as you say, where do we want to live? And I think, one of the takeaways and what I want to also instill is to reconnect not just to the United States, but to our own ancestry.
Yes.
I think Jupiter in Cancer can be a really important time to weave back, to trace back where we're coming from, and that informs us about where we're going, because it's an incubating phase in Cancer. And then when Jupiter hits Leo next year, there's going to be some kind of release.
Yeah. It goes into fire then. So it goes and helps the fire and air planets then.
And
Right.
so as
Right now it's training them.
exactly. And so as we do our kind of ceremonial astrological work together, it strengthens, our identities, our convictions, and brings confidence to then advance to those next phases. So we all need a support system.
Yeah.
What's being taken away, and I think not just in the United States, but a lot of places around the world, is that people have less and less of a security blanket. We live more alone. We're more individualistic. We're not as tribal as we used to be. Modern life is not a very communal and nourishing lifestyle compared to tribal indigenous people. So recreating that and remembering that, not just from our ancestors, but even as astrologers, I think Jupiter in Cancer, one of the main contribution is to rebuild our safety nets and our what's the word, support system. And that can, like you say, once we have that, we can thrive.
Yep. Well,
So
when Cancers travel, they always unpack their suitcases and maybe whatever room they're in, their nest, right? So Cancer says you need a nest. What is your nest? And if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that bottom layer of the pyramid is, are you safe? Are you warm? Are you fed? Are you, the structure of your basic needs. And so Jupiter in Cancer says to us, what are your basic needs? Do you have them?
yeah.
And then you go, yes, I do. And it's like, okay.
And many people don't have them today.
Many people feel like they're being taken away. But when you live in the moment, do you have enough food?
Yeah.
When you live in the moment, are you warm? If not, how can we help you? So that's the thing. It pulls it in. It's Jupiter in Cancer is insular. It wants to feed the baby bird. It's not
Yeah.
out of the nest yet. So because we're in such a structured, crazy world, or unstructured, crazy world right now, we all have to feed ourselves what nurtures ourselves. Whatever that is, whatever brings you joy, whatever makes you feel safe, whatever makes you feel like you've settled into that comfort space.
And I think it's kind of reminding us it's okay to need.
Yes.
Because there's such a negative connotation with need, as in clingy and codependent and weak. In some ways, you know, we we don't honor Cancer, that interdependence, that reliance on each other, that ability to be weak, to be held, to be nourished by the elders and the younger, that kind of rotation where parents take care of their kids and then their kids take care of their parents. It's very Jupiter in Cancer, and I think that that's part of its message. So as we feel perhaps anxious, or even as people are struggling, in some places of the world, even feeding themselves, it's okay to need, it's okay to ask, it's okay to receive help. This is the time where going to a conference or buying something that makes you feel good, it's like a little self-indulgence, without guilt. It goes a long way.
It does. It does.
And so Jupiter, as far as its cycle goes, um it's now going to hit the 15 degrees Cancer in the course of August, which is not just the exaltation sign, but it's the actual exaltation degree. So that happens towards the end, the 20-ish of
Right.
August.
Mhm.
Then it's going to go all the way to 24, 25, and starts its retrograde in November.
Right.
And then retrograde all the way back to 15 Cancer in March, until March. And then move forward. And as it usually is with its last, going direct phase, it's going to race forward into Leo. And it
Yeah.
enters Leo on June 30th-ish.
July. Yeah, July 1st. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. July 1st. And so just to, for people to kind of notice where those degrees are. So the phase where Jupiter is going to spend the most time is between 15 and 25. Because that's the phase where it's going forward and back and forward again.
Right.
So watch, what is it you have on those mid, 15 to 25 degrees Cancer.
Because he gets 3 passes.
Yeah, because it gets 3 passes, and those questions: where do I belong? What do I need? What can make me feel safe? And how can I actually answer those needs and not, starve, literally.
Mhm, mhm. What is that tribal abundance about? What do I find that holds me? Because we have decans in astrology too. So the 15 to 20 is the Pisces decan, which is what do I do for taking care of the universal global world? And then the 20 to 30 is the Scorpio decan. So it's kind of Cancer with Pisces, and then Cancer with Scorpio, and then Cancer with Pisces, and then Cancer with Scorpio. So it's like this little dance that it's doing, which is very creative. Because if we think of swamps as being creative, because all the things that are, and the ocean as being vast source of our weather, our food supply. So we understand the inherent nature of Cancer as a nurturer, but we're going to be working with the decans, the sections of Cancer that are about our connection to community, Pisces, the larger group of the world that we're part of, and then Scorpio, the component that we feel so deeply personal about, where we feel so intensely connected with. So it's going to be a really interesting year with Jupiter in Cancer. And because of the 3 passes in that section, also any planets you have at between 15 and 25 are going to be activated by some kind of aspect from Jupiter. So he's going to wake all those planets up in your chart. If it's you got something in Capricorn, he's going to wake it up. We're going to go back to the Capricorn, which was COVID, right? So we're going to have Jupiter opposite the COVID planets. Which were 22, 23 Cap. We're going to have Jupiter talking to the Scorpio planets that you have at those late degrees. We're going to have
It's
Jupiter talking to
interesting
the Pisces planet. Yeah, it's a real
that
culmination. Yeah.
because you bring up the COVID thing,
Mhm.
and there's a whole movement with Robert Kennedy to change the policies around pharmaceutical and vaccines, which were the big controversy of the COVID time.
In
And
America, in
and
America.
that's the thing, is that RFK is born in your generation, I
Uh,
believe, and he's also a Jupiter in Cancer.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
he's now, advancing those ideas,
Mhm.
which kind of reflects on the COVID time. So it will be interesting to see
Yeah.
what comes out of that.
Well, we're going to have another pandemic, right? So Saturn and Neptune on a world point in 0 Aries. We got to watch for it this summer. It's going to show up this summer, but it hits next year. And so when that hits and we don't have any vaccinations and we have no government programs in place to do them, everybody should be building their immune system while Jupiter's in Cancer. Because Donald Trump is on steroids part 2. Geminis do it twice, right? So we know we're going to have another pandemic. So just everybody, kind of go, all right, I went through the last one. How do I get there? What's that next chapter look like? Yeah. How do we
Yep.
how do we take care of each other?
Yeah, and the support system, which is eroding on a political level, but it
Yeah.
can be
From
rebuilt on a
the
grassroots
right.
level.
Mhm. Yep.
And that's what also I think Jupiter in Cancer reminds us as we connect with ourselves, is to understand our agency, to understand that we are not helpless, that we are not, giving up our will. So it strengthens our own convictions and our own value systems and whatnot.
Right. Right.
So I think it's empowering
Yeah.
in that sense.
Mhm.
The theme of the conference is also bringing the feminine wisdom, which is wisdom Jupiter,
Mhm.
motherly priestess. You know, it's the energy of the priestess in Cancer. So you are one of the priestesses. I am one of the priestesses.
Mhm.
And I wonder if in your life there were meaningful priestesses, you know, women who had, you know, important wisdom for you, who were wisdom keeper. If
Mhm.
you are also, because you're also born with a Jupiter Uranus, um, if you're
Conjunction.
part of a circle of wisdom keepers, I mean, naturally as an astrologer, but is there
Mhm.
something more intimate? You know, what's your
Oh
story
yeah. Yeah.
with that?
Well, lot of circles in many ways. I'm Aquarius rising, so I also run groups a lot, right? Aquarius rising, I was born into a group. There, when I was born, your birth story tells your story. It was a party, and my mother went into labor. It was a Saturday, and all the interns came, and they betted on me, Jupiter. And halfway out, boy or girl, and I was a girl. My father said, "You cost me money when you arrived on Earth," because he bet I would be a boy. But I was born into a group. So I have had many groups in my lifetime, whether it was when I ran houses, beach houses, when I've taught classes. We just went on a cruise where we brought a bunch of people, to kind of learn astrology and explore Alaska. OPA, obviously, you and I working together in OPA, we got to, really know each other and
Yeah.
fall in love with each other. Um, and so I have like community kind of all over that I feel very, very blessed by, frankly. Yeah. So
And were there important women, female
yes,
figures?
yes, yes, yes. Yeah. My mother created a home. We were the house that all the kids came to. And my mother was the person that all my friends went to talk to about stuff.
Hmm.
And I was at my father's funeral, and one of my high school friends said, "Yeah, I ran away in high school to your house." I'm like, "Really?" And my mother was really mad that I ran away to your mother. I'm like, "Oh, okay." But my mother would take in people. My one of my best friends in high school had a difficult home situation, which I was not aware of, but she stayed at our house most weekends. And my mother did this with many people, many people. And then we always had a huge meal with, any orphan that wanted to come, as well as all the relatives gathering for dinner. But yes, it was definitely,
Kind of
creating.
a matriarch.
Oh yeah, she was a matriarch. And then my grandmother, both grandmothers, and then my aunts. I had and I had wonderful uncles too. No shade on them, but yeah, it was definitely a home where our friends felt my mother was like their mom on
Mhm.
multiple levels. So yeah.
I mean, that's a, you know, that really captures that energy because it's important to kind of, you know, how our definitions actually apply to real life experiences,
Yes.
how the astrology is applied.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Any last comments on?
I would say it's a magical place. It is well worth your energy, your time, your heart warmth to come. The food is good. The company will be great. You will make lifelong friends and connections, which I've made, with people I met at Omega. Like I just got to know them there. And I've gone there, besides teaching there, I've gone there for workshops. So, I took tarot there with Rachel Pollack and Mary Green. They have wonderful programs, and they really want to, part of their mission is to create a sense of community and connection. So they're very good at that kind of fostering. I don't know, you just feel like you're in magic land. So and
And I want to,
the fall is beautiful in upstate New York.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's another important point. But I want to bring to people's attention some logistics
Yes.
that some of their rooms are sold out.
Hmm.
And what's available now are private rooms, but shared bathrooms if you want to stay on campus.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you can book Airbnbs. There are plenty of accommodation in the nearby town of Rhinebeck.
And lots of
So
Airbnb that do Omega. Yeah.
that do Omega. There are some places that also offer discounts for Omega attendees. So just want to bring that to your attention that if you want to stay on campus, some of these rooms are running out. But there's always the option to come from the nearby town.
And they have a lot of Ubers up there too. So if you're worried about
Okay.
transportation, you're coming from out of town, they have Ubers.
Okay, great. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, Anne, safe travels.
Thanks.
And let's tune into the Jupiter at 15 degrees Cancer. See what it brings. Everyone, try to pay attention where that degree hits in your chart, because it is kind of I would say the intense degree, the powerful degree of Jupiter in Cancer, and it can be a catalyst for activating all those themes.